Welcome to the University of Kentucky Department of Veterinary Sciences lecture entitled Nipping Disease in the Bud, Preventing Treatment Errors. Unleash the Power of the Microchip. The talk is presented by Dr. Alan Dorton, a renowned practitioner in Central Kentucky, and Dr. Kevin Corley, based in Ireland. He has a PhD and is boarded in both internal medicine and critical care, and has developed this app.
Thank you for having me. The story in my journey with these microchips started with Ramsey Farm in Nicholasville, Kentucky, back in 2013, and probably some in 2012. And it all started with this gentleman, Mr. Ken Ramsey, on the left, and this stallion, Kitten's Joy, on the right. And if anybody, I'm sure most people that have dealt with thoroughbreds have dealt with Kitten's Joy's foals, and you can see many of them look the same. Okay, these are some of the kittens that were created at Ramsey Farm, and you can see there was a good chance that we might end up with some confusion. So that's why that's a lot of kittens. That's my favorite name because of all these kittens. So these are four of the mares, and funny enough, this year, Arana and Asana, different by one letter, they both fold on the same night, about an hour apart. So confusion there. Then we have three grannies. And then in 2014, you can see we had two on the 1st of February and 5 on the 2nd of February. Okay, then in a 12-day period, a 14-day period, we had 26 foals born. And that year there was a total of about 260, 270 foals born on the farm. So there was a good chance we would get some of them confused. And in 2013, we had two oopses. Mares actually switched foals. Both were maidens, both turned out in a lot together the day after they fold. They fold the same day. And we didn't know that until the DNA testing came back for registration, and the farm manager called that one of the foals, the DNA didn't match. And I said, well, they've switched foals. So we gathered together everybody that had foaled, within a few days of that mare foaling. That was confusion. And of course, we found the other one whose DNA did not match. So at the time, I was working a lot with the University of Kentucky in vet science and with the Gluck equine and helping with the research herd. And I knew that they used these life chips with the biothermo technology, and asked them about them. They were very happy with them. And these are the readers that will read the microchip and read the temperature. So that was a start. And so we had microchipped all the mares, all the foals, all the yearlings, just so we could keep them straight. We had other mix-ups that occurred from training barns. A lot of times when they would ship out to the trainers, the grooms would take off the neck straps and the halters and clean them, and a couple of times they got put back on the wrong horses. So we kept logs, mini logs. These are some of the horses and their microchip numbers. We had them arranged in just a special notebook, where they were by alphabetical order and by numerical order. And we were actually just physically looking at the temperatures on the microchip reader and recording them daily. Then I kept talking to Marta, the microchip rep, and asking her it would be really nice if we could have some way that if this reader could just tell us the horse's name, because sometimes it would, when you have like 1,500 horses that are chipped, it took a while to figure out which one you were looking at. So then Marta met Kevin, and Kevin's in Ireland, and he developed the Equitrace app. And so started working with Kevin and the Equitrace app, found out if we just had smartphones with Bluetooth capability that could link to the microchip readers that were reading the temperatures of the foals and the horses, and voila, here we go. This was when it became really nice and really easy. About a 3-second scan, we could identify the horse by name and record that horse's temperature on our smartphones. We could follow the changes in the temperature because The temperatures, each time the horse is scanned, it is stored on the cloud, and we can access this and look at it. We have easy access to the history of the horse, where it's been, what all we've done to it, how many temperatures it's had. We can make notes and add to this app. We can find where that horse was the last time he was scanned using Google Maps. So this is when we first, I've got a little movie here to show you when I first put the chip in the foal. It's about 45 seconds or so. First, the microchip connects to the phone. Then I read the microchip that I've just placed in the foal. So it's an unknown horse. So of course the jockey club has no record of it. So we enter the name of the horse. Okay, sex, color, date of birth. Pretty fast and easy way to identify the horse. And we do this with the foals before they leave the stall. That way we cannot get them confused after they foal. Everyone in the foaling barn knows that the horses do not leave the stall until I identify them the next morning or later on that night, depending on when they foal. So here we can put down the sire, the dam. I misspelled the sire on purpose. Okay, and there I've recorded the horse. Now, next I can connect again, scan the foal after the microchip warms up in the foal. Then I can see what his temperature is. Okay, whoops. I've already done this one. So here's the edit. Okay, so we got the lady is a kitten 20. I know I spelled Pioneer the Nile wrong, so I fixed that. Okay, just a few little steps, and I got the year wrong. So it did not record because I had the wrong year on there. So April 7th, 2017 or 2020. And there we go. Now details are updated. Now he's permanently marked temperature 99. Okay, now the app use that I can use it for, I can view, usually before I go to the farm, I check the horses and their temperatures because the guys are reading these temperatures early in the morning. I usually get to the farm around 10 o'clock. And here's how long it takes. They're going to check this mare and this foal. And you can see that they're all used to getting scanned. Even the foals, most of them just stand there. They don't even have to catch them, just walk in, scan the temperature, and boom, they're done. Walk out of the stall. Okay, so I can then access the app, view the temperatures taken that day. Like here's Glamour Puss and Glamour Puss's baby. See, they're all together right here. Over here on the other side, I had to slide it open a little bit so you could see it. Here's all the temperatures recorded that day and at that time, and it tells me who scanned it, what time, and where they were. Okay, if I want to, I can email those temperatures, the list of everything scanned. Here's the microchip number, horse's name, sire, dam, sex, year of birth, temperature recorded, the date that it was recorded, and the time it was recorded. So I can either look at that on my phone, or I can email it to the farm manager, or I've got one show barn now using this. They were hoping to be using it this year, but since there are not any shows, this is the way the trainer can be checking the temperatures on the horses back at the barn while she's, 3 states away at a horse show. But that will come as soon as we get out of this. So it's a fast identification. You can see it just takes a few seconds. The main thing we watch, I can see the changes in the temperature. Okay, you can see how fast it is to scan. One person can do it. It's safe, it's less people, there's no social distancing because usually it's just those two guys you saw scanning the horses a minute ago, they were roommates. And in these times of social distancing, we don't have to worry about the risk of exposure between people. And so far, no one's been kicked taking a temperature on one of the foals. So first and second year uses, you saw me when I first put the microchip in the foal. We record his birth date, his initial body weight, and IgG levels after I get that back from the lab. The temperatures are monitored many times as needed. Of course, it's at least twice a day usually. Sick foals more often. Any illnesses that the foals have, any lab results I enter. If I gave plasma, any treatments, vaccines, deworming data. It's all right there. If I want anything I want to put in, I can see it. Hernia repairs, orthopedic procedures, if I had to have corrective shoes, if it was basically, it's a pocket medical history of every foal, weanling, and yearling until it leaves the farm. And this can follow the horse if it goes to a trainer. So that is possible to do that. Like this one, this is Tipsy. This is one of my favorite mares. And you can see that it got a liter of plasma when he was born here on 419. His IgG after that was 1408. Then on 518, they noticed a temperature spike on him. And we checked him out, determined it was going to be diarrhea. Going to be diarrhea is the key there because the horse wasn't sick. He just had a temperature. You can see 102.6. And so we started him on metronidazole, equazole, ranitidine, it's the usual anti-diarrhea medicines. Okay, here's another foal at another farm. You can see the temperatures here that are recorded twice a day on this foal. And temperatures on the left, you can see a big temperature spike on this date. Okay. Ultrasounded the chest and the abdomen on this foal after this temperature spike. Lungs were clear, had a slightly enlarged on one of the umbilical veins and a thickened segment of small intestine. Started it on metronidazole, looked like it was going to be diarrhea, never developed diarrhea, but we treated it and foal returned to normal. Had one more spike a couple of days later, and then has been normal ever since. So that's been a big value. I've used that many times this year on at least 3 dozen foals. We're catching illnesses before they start, mostly diarrhea, and we're catching diarrhea before they get diarrhea. I mean, that is the beauty of this thing, and that's why I like it so much. Like here's another foal that had a temperature spike. You can also see that I can see it on a scale, on a graph, or on a list. And this foal on the 28th had a temperature of 104. Okay, we started it on metronidazole because it was probably going to be diarrhea. And here we go again, had a couple of temperature spikes, then returned to normal, back down to baseline. And everything's been fine ever since on this foal. This is another foal that had a temperature spike. This is from birth up until, you can just see how I can follow the temperatures. I can do this anytime I want to pick up my phone and find this foal, or I can scan this foal and check these temperatures. And I get out to here and all of a sudden I get a big spike right here. So I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be diarrhea again. So we start treating it for diarrhea. A couple of days later, you see here, we spike again. So he gets a scan for rhodococcus and ends up being rhodococcus lesions were found. So we switched the treatment from metronidazole and anti-diarrheal medicines to clarithromycin and rifampin. And the foal is doing fine after a few days of treatment. And now he's back on the recovery, and we will continue the treatment and keep a watch on the rhodococcus and determine where we go from that. But this is an excellent way. This was the first foal I actually caught that had rhodococcus with a temperature spike. So that's why I put him in. Okay. And on brood mares, it's really good for me on brood mares, and I have no idea where these little boxes are coming from, so I'm sorry for that. I don't know how to get rid of them either. And so we can record breeding dates, ultrasound dates and results, but the main thing I've been using it for is cysts that look like pregnancies, and I'm sure everybody that does brood mares knows that problem. And anything else I want to remember about this mare, like if she had a dystocia, did she need Regimate last year, was she dirty, any things like that. So I can any past problems. If she had placentitis, did we treat her for placentitis last year, or were we treating her this year? And any issues with any previous breedings, I can make notes of that and bring them back up. And also, it's a great way to keep track of the vaccine and deworm history. It's going to be good when I figure out how to do it for palpation results and ultrasounds, but it's proven too time consuming right now. And technician availability to help with that, it's just kind of difficult to do right now, but that will probably be incorporated in the future. Okay, like this mare, First in Time was her name. You can check down here on, was given 9-month vaccines, vaccine she was given her strangles vaccine before she foals, 10-month vaccines. Okay, then it's time to get ready to breed. And I find a 12-day cyst in the body of the uterus and a 14-day cyst in the mid-right horn. That's valuable information. Like before, we would have those written on papers and we would be scrambling back through, looking through page after page of palpation notes, trying to find this mare to find out what note she had. Okay, then this year we have things like Tipsy. Just the other day, I found her that, once again, I mentioned that she's my favorite mare. And she had, check her at 14 days, she had twins. Reduced twins, gave her 5 cc's P4. Today, she was still good. So that's how I use it with brood mares. Here's another one. I've got 7-month, 8-month, preg checked in December to make sure she was pregnant. 9-month vaccines in December. Okay, 10-month vaccines in January. Then she foaled, was dewormed April, checked, ultrasound, pregnant, twins reduced in May. So it's a great way to look back to see. And you can see I had a little bit of a problem on this mare. It had 14 days pregnant, a possible twin in the mid left horn. I checked her again the next day, still couldn't convince myself. I called it a 15-day signal, but I still wasn't sure. So I checked her again 2 days later, and it was twins. So that was really handy for that. The benefits of the microchip and the app that I've been using it's a really fast, easy way to record the temperatures and to keep track of all these temperatures. We had a couple of years ago, had some horses come back from the September yearling sale, and a couple of them brought back a virus. So we had 82 yearlings still in the barns, in 4 different barns, spiking temperatures in late September, early October of 105 and 106. And this was before the app came around, and I told the yearling manager I need you to take temperatures 3 times a day now to see who needs the Banamine for these temperatures. And he was complaining on how long that was going to take until I reminded him, remember that scanner I gave you? And he managed to do 82 yearlings in 4 barns in 25 minutes if he had somebody to open the stall doors. So he was quite happy there. And on another big benefit for me is the bookkeeping with the notes. Like when we're giving vaccines or deworming, we can keep track of these on the app and send them to my bookkeeper. Okay, I can find a horse, any horse I want. So this was Reach for a Peach again. This was the temperature I was following on it. Little button over here, there's where the horse is located. And that's using Google Maps. I can tell by the location with that's in barn 3, that's the foaling barn. So I know where it is. Okay, the benefits and the limitations, it's most accurate first thing in the morning or after they've been in the stall for an hour or so. Exercise, I've not noticed it to raise the temperature falsely. It's an accurate temperature. It's usually within a half a degree of rectal temperature. And if you're exercising the horse and his temperature rises, working hard in the summertime, the microchip will record that horse's temperature, and it will record how fast he returns to baseline. So that's been pretty valuable, especially on doing training and keeping track on how fit they are. The microchip temperatures are 99.9% of the time are within 1 degree, usually a half a degree of the rectal temperatures. The only time I have found the microchip to be inaccurate is if we are outside and the horses are wet in the rain and it's cold and windy. Then the temperatures read low. I have not had any effect that I can find on the horses being in the sun, but I still can't prove it. But if they're in the stall at least an hour, I know it's a true temperature. But I don't think the sun seems to have any effect on the accuracy of the temperature read at all. Though there's one chip out of the 1,500 chips that I put in that has routinely read 3 degrees low of the rectal temperature every time I read it. So there's something with that chip, but I can't go in and take it out and put another one in. We just know that this one reads low, and we just made a note of it. The smartphone requirements that you need, it's the newer the model. Like I have a Samsung 10. So the newer the model, the newer the software, the better the app works. It works with my Samsung. It also works with iPhones. Like half the guys on the farm have iPhones, and it works well with them. And it's the GPS version on the phone. Once again, the newer phone you have, the more accurate the GPS version is. Okay, one big benefit that I've found is these chips do not seem to migrate, unlike the ones that we've used from the Jockey Club on other farms and on, other horses. I've found one, I knew I'd put a Jockey Club chip in the neck of this one baby when he was a yearling, trying to read his microchip to send him to the sale. I could not find it, and I finally located it down on his pastern, left front. I've located many on the chest of horses, but the most I've seen one of these thermo chips migrate is a couple of inches. So I'm really happy with that. On uses in broodmare, when the palpation records on broodmares, I really need somebody really well trained in the operation of the app and is good with the data while I'm checking the horse to be able to do it accurately, because I do record it on paper, so it'd have to be paper and then put on the data entered in the microchip app. So I'm not sure if I will ever do that, because that's just going to be some time constraints. And I can email temperatures or notes. Here's how. It's a good example of all the horses that were given strangles. These were yearlings given pinnacle strangles on the 18th of February this year. And I just emailed this list to my bookkeeper, and she billed and just straight off this. And these are vaccines that were given to the brood mares, 8-month vaccines, 7-month vaccines. And it's, instead of shuffling through papers, we just scan the horse, enter in what we need. And most of the smartphones that we have, they have that clipboard, capability where it's just, just to paste it onto each mare as we do it. So that's what I have for you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adam and the Gluck Center, for the invitation to talk. And thank you also to Dr. Dorton for that excellent talk. Very briefly, we've been working on equine traceability solutions since 2014. As an internal medicine specialist, I'm extremely interested and excited in the possibilities of using this technology for disease prevention and control. And so there's been a lot of talk recently about track and trace and all the things you have to do with disease outbreaks. And I've been thinking about microchips and the ways we can use microchips and scanners and apps to achieve that for a long time now. And in 2019, we founded a company to try and bring this to reality. And, we've brought this to reality and to try and move it on. So, as Dr. Dorton said, scanning a microchip is so fast and non-invasive that it's maybe easy to overlook everything that can be gained from this one simple action of a couple of seconds. When you scan a microchip, you get a 15-digit number that's unique to the horse. If the horse has a temp scan microchip, you also get the temperature, as Dr. Dorton has described. And, that's very cool, if you pardon the pun. However, this data has to be manually recorded or later retrieved. I know of a horse rescue center where every time a temperature is taken, the horse name and temperature is typed into a WhatsApp group so that next person taking the temperature has something to compare the new temperature to with the previous temperature of that horse. And those kind of manual recording is what I'm trying to get away from. And so we are interested in maximizing the usefulness of that one simple action, scanning a microchip. And for that, you need an app. So this is some of what an app allows us to do with the microchip. So if we go down the left-hand column, at the most simple, it allows identification, turns a 15-digit number into a name. If the horse has a temp scan microchip, as Dr. Dorton has shown, we can also get the temperature. Take the GPS from the phone, add it to the temperature, and we've got biosecurity. We know which horses have been where, which horses are febrile, and we can start really looking at disease management, look at which horses have been with, which horses track and trace. We can also use it to avoid treatment errors. Very simply, scan a horse's microchip, and I'll show you this in a minute, find out which treatments are due to that individual horse, give the right treatments to the right horse. We can record medical records, as Dr. Dorton has shown. We can use it for communication on the farm. And importantly, in these times, we can reduce labor costs and enable social distancing. On the other side, on the right-hand side, there's a lot we can do for regulatory authorities and other larger equine organizations. Again, simply, identification at the sales ring, identification at the racetrack. We can also use the data that individuals are generating to create traceability. And so, depending on the organization and their contract with their members, we can generate traceability of an individual horse, or we can generate information about which horses have been in contact with each other, and we can generate information about where fever clusters have been. And this possibility is what really excites me. We can help authorities by avoiding inadvertent drug positives. And what we know is that if horses are given a therapeutic drug and accidentally get a drug positive from it, the general public doesn't always distinguish between a accidental use of a therapeutic drug for a genuine purpose that had a positive at the races with cheating. And if we can avoid accidents with therapeutic drugs, then we can improve the general impression of our profession and of our industry. Integrity and accuracy. One of the great things about scanning a microchip is you have to be physically next to that horse to generate that record. And it's one of the reasons we have concentrated on real-time scanning of the microchip, going to the phone and creating a record. And so we've got a lot of interest in this from insurance companies and other authorities, so that, for example, if a vet goes to check a horse 5 days before Churchill Down races, you know that vet was next to that horse when they did that physical exam. If a vet submits a mortality insurance form in China, you can be sat at Lloyd's of London and know that that horse was looked by that vet at that time. And lastly, you can capture the data and instead of paperwork, get direct data entry into systems. So let's look at some of this. Well, we can start off just reviewing what Dr. Dorton has shown us. Scanner random racehorse. I'm sure some of you recognize it. And you get the identity of the horse. And this brings up the main control panel of the horse, shows you identity, breeding, current temperature. If you have a temp scan chip, it works with other chips as well. That panel is just blank. You get previous notes and you get to get to other parts of the app to look at other features. So here, as Dr. Dorton showed you, we can graph and list previous temperatures. We can show you exactly where the horse was scanned. Can add notes and it identifies who added the note and at what time. Documents can be added. These can be PDFs or JPEGs. So you can add X-ray results, you can add blood results, you can add anything that helps you that gets filed to that individual horse within the app. And we can reduce labor costs. So as Dr. Dorton was saying, it's very, very quick to take a temperature with these scanners and temp scan microchips. Here's a real world example. When I was making this slide a couple of days ago, I looked on the database of anonymized data we get, and here's a sequence of 18 temperatures taken in 4 minutes, 10 seconds from one of our clients. So add temperature and traceability, and you have powerful biosecurity. This can work at a farm level. So at the moment, we have GPS tracking of all scans so that you know exactly where a horse was scanned. But for some situations, that might not be enough. And knowing which barn it is in, you might actually want to know which box it's in. Unfortunately, GPS can't get that. So in the forthcoming July update, we'll also be able to record every field, box or stall that the animal has been in. Simply touch the blue writing underneath the name there, and you get to enter which box it's in. So, and then you can get a complete record of in-farm movements for that particular horse or for a group of horses over a date range. So if you want to look back as to which horses were in contact with this horse 10 days ago, it's all there on the app for you. So communication. One of the most important things, and one of the things we are built into the app from the start, is the ability for the data to be shared amongst authorized participants. So we're very interested in making useful management tools, and one person has control over the data in their farm. They get to invite users to share their data, authorize them, and if someone leaves the farm, press a button and they no longer have access to the data. All the notes and temperatures are encrypted on the phone and are sent to our server encrypted. So we have no access to any information about the horse's health. It's private to the farm. And we also don't get the GPS scans. So this is currently in alpha testing. It will be available in July as a free update for all our users. And this is our new feature. We just actually hired a new Android developer to get this out faster. And this is looking at treatments. So scan a horse's microchip and you get to see which treatments that horse is due at that moment. There's also obviously reminders if which horses to be treated, and there's an ability to add reminders if treatments have been missed, etc. In addition to that, we've added information about competition withdrawal. So if the horse is within a period where it is likely to test positive or may test positive for a competition, a blue bar appears on its main page saying this horse was what it was treated with and a suggested time not to compete under which rules. This is the page where you set it up, and so you can either choose drugs from ones you've given before, or you can type in, it will automatically complete. It will give usual doses or allow you to select the previous dose that you gave for that drug. It will allow you to give a reason if you wish to, and that will set up the drug. And then you get a list of scheduled treatments for each horse, which you can adjust as you go along. We've built in lots of exceptions and are working to build in all the rules. For example, here, Lasix, we've built in that Churchill Downs is currently not allowing on race day in 2-year-olds. So that flags when you enter Lasix and you're on the Kentucky Thoroughbred guidance. Here, Pergolide requires a therapeutic use exemption for the USCF guidelines. We've also recognized that we're just putting in guidance, and many people have worked out their own withdrawal times, and so the withdrawal times can be worked out by the vet or someone else for the trainer for a barn, and then that's automatically shared amongst all authorized users in that barn, that they get those bespoke withdrawal times for that business. Many drugs have barcodes on them. In Europe, many of the drugs have 2D barcodes on, which give not only the drug name, but also give batch number and expiry date. And we have grabbed that as an easy way of data entry. So it will grab 1D barcodes and give you the name of the drug, or it will grab 2D barcodes, as in this example. Scan the horse. Scan a drug, and it instantly comes up with the drug, the expiry date, and the batch number. Enter the amount in this proof of concept, and you're done. It's all entered there. By September, ready for the Southern Hemisphere foaling season, we will have entered an easy way. Will have added an easy way for recording reproduction, and it'll get thoroughly road tested in the Southern Hemisphere and be ready for January in the Northern Hemisphere. And we're going to add vaccine reminders and weight measuring and other small additions, all to help the management of the farm. This is something that I've been talking to various companies about, various drug companies about, that I think would be a huge boon for mandatory vaccination for competition horses. What it requires is a unique code on a single-use vial for the vaccine. And in Europe, many of the countries have pre-filled syringes for single-use vaccines, which would be fantastic, especially for influenza, which is mandated, for example, by the FEI. So what it requires is that there's a unique code, unique to that bottle, on the vial of vaccine that can be encoded either as a 2D barcode, as I showed you before, or even better, it could be encoded as a NFC chip. Then all you have to do, scan the vial, scan the horse, and that assigns one unique vial to that horse. So that vial then can't be used for any other animal. Date and time come from the server, so there's no pressure on vets to falsify certificates, as they have no control over the date and time. It has to be at the time they're administering the drug. A couple of carrots in there as vaccine reminders and information about when the horse may compete. Some authorities have no competition for 7 days after vaccination. And that is as near as possible to ensure that the animal is actually vaccinated. Information from colleagues in France suggests that for the 6 monthly FEI vaccines, only 10 to 20% of vaccines are not actually given, and that the passports are signed without the vaccines actually being given. This is a way to ensure that pressure doesn't happen on vets, ensure integrity of the sport, and also it's a win for vaccine companies as well, in that they will sell the correct amount of vaccine. So let's talk about organization benefits. First, the simple one, identification. Can check in animals to competitions and sales, have a variety of formats to suit the different disciplines. Scan a horse and you get information about that horse's identity. If the horse has a temp scan chip, you can see its temperature at the time. This can allow you to check that the right horse is presenting. You can format it so that entrants in a certain race are preloaded and you can tell if it's the right horse for the right race, etc. Here is that app in use, Goff's Bloodstock Sales, which is the premier thoroughbred sales ring in Ireland, have been using it for about 18 months. The way they set it up is all the horses to check go in the left-hand side of the iPad and then move across to the right-hand side as they're checked. They have American barns, so one person, the way they wanted it for their protocols is the person holding the iPad stays outside the stall. It's connected to 2 microchip scanners, and there's one person either side of the barn scanning horses, and those all feed to the single microchip. So this is what that looks like. It's all very fast, so they're just back in time to see the horse come up. What they're most concerned about is the right horse in the right box or the right stall at the sales. So the biggest thing there was F13, which is the stall number for that horse. More interestingly, perhaps, is, depending on the arrangement between the organization and their members, you can get information about location and temperatures of horses. This would allow, for example, on the left-hand side, draw a gate on an area of a map, select a date, and know all horses that have been in that area within the time frame that you set. So if there's a case of EHV, you can look at all horses within your organization that have been within that area on the day when the infected horse was known to be there. On the right-hand side, we have fever alerts. So you can set up so that if there is a certain number of horses have fevers within a certain area and time period, it alerts back to the authority. Like say 1 kilometer squared, maybe 4 horses, 5 kilometers squared or miles squared, maybe 9 horses. If several horses within the same geographic region have temperatures, that can be a very good early warning of an outbreak. And if they're on different properties, people might not even realize that there's a disease outbreak happening. This is what we are providing to the US Trotting Association. So we are providing the Equitrace app to their members, and that will harvest the location and temperature for the US Trotting Association. That goes onto a database that we don't have access to, that they will build their own things on top of and use that data in a way that's appropriate to their organization. Just showing you why this is important. Just a reminder of what happened in the influenza outbreak in Australia in 2007. It spread very, very quickly. And unfortunately, all this information about how it spread was found retrospectively. Imagine being able to see those temperatures occurring at the time and nip this in the bud. That would be, you know, that is the ultimate aim of this technology, is to have a reason for people to scan their horses every day. This will not work if people are not frequently scanning their horses. So we're trying to build a system that provides a lot of benefit to people to scan their horses. And then back to the authority, that scanning of horses crowdsources traceability. And if you add temp scan chips, also biosecurity. And if you're not familiar with Australia, New South Wales is very large indeed. It's about 800 kilometers squared, which is bigger than Texas. I think Texas is around 700 kilometers squared. So this outbreak stretched from effectively northern Pennsylvania down to northern Georgia. This is something that's also become an issue in Australia, which is the fate of horses after their competitive life. And it may become an issue in the States and Ireland, you know, following on from that. And if you give people a reason to scan their horses, for example, on studs, or monitoring their temperature when they go to leisure programs, or monitoring their well-being, then that allows us to rule out 95% of horses and know where they are after their competitive life. So it becomes a feasible situation to follow other horses after their competitive life. And this is the problem with traceability, and this is why traceability has failed so far in Ireland and other countries. This is from 6th of March this year, and was looking at traceability in Ireland. And the real problem is that people don't update records. So when a horse dies, when a horse transfers ownership, when a horse leaves the country, you are supposed to write on a piece of paper or a form and send it into the regulatory authority. And unfortunately, you know, people have the full intention of doing this, but life intervenes, and it's very hard to get people to do things which takes quite so much effort. So the other possibility, if we're talking about using this to improve traceability and tracking, I've shown you all the carrots that cause people to want to scan their horses. We can also add the stick, and if authorities choose that this is a way they want to go, they could create an alert like this, that some horses have not been scanned in whatever time period you set. And then it's very easy to say, oh, of course I haven't scanned that one. He's been sold. It's a reminder and a very simple way of people to communicate change in status of their horses to an authority with a reminder on their phone, which they carry with them all the time, and make sure that you actually have a live, active traceability database. So this is just illustrating how I see the dream, how I see this enacted once you've got sufficient uptake of people using these management tools and gaining the benefit from them. Then a horse arrives at a racetrack or a competition or a gymkhana. Its microchip is scanned as it arrives. That immediately recognizes that it's been there mixing with other horses, but an official steps out and asks the horse to go to an isolation facility so it can be addressed by a vet prior to admission to the main facility. Why? Well, horse has a fever on arrival, and we all know that it's not very feasible to go and try and take temperatures of racehorses as they arrive to a racetrack. Very, very easy to scan their microchips. Horse has had a fever in the past 7 days. Horse was recorded as being in an area where there is known disease. So if we've got complete traceability, we know where that horse has been. We know that it's possibly been exposed to disease. Please go to the isolation facility. Vet can look at it, decide it's okay. It can go into the main competition area. Horse was recorded as receiving a therapeutic drug within its possible withdrawal period. Now, this is up to the competition authorities whether they decide to do this or not, but it's very simple to add it if that is required. So this is what it would look like. This horse has recently been recorded in the area of Remington Park, Oklahoma. EHV1's recently been recorded there. Horse should be sent to an isolation facility. So in summary, we are trying to create something that provides tangible benefits to users and tangible benefits to the organization. It's available now. It can be downloaded from the App Store or Google Play Store, and it will grow as more people use it. More and more features will be added. And I'll leave you with a short video showing the app. Thank you very much. Be glad to answer any questions.
And perhaps, Dr. Corley, you could comment on how people on your farm share the app.
So basically, one person has control of the data and can invite who they like to share that data and can remove them. And it doesn't have to be that people don't have to be in the same country. Dr. Dorton could invite me to look at Ramsey Farm data and I can see it in Ireland instantly as it's recorded.
There was another very good question here, and that was, for how many years does the temp scan continue to work accurately? So it's more of a chip question, I think, than perhaps an app question.
Yeah, I can respond that. So there's no moving parts inside the microchip, and so it doesn't have that limitation in terms of years. It will continue to work for the life of the animal.
Would there be any way, and I've asked about this a little bit, that you could read the chip in a certain part of the stall that the horse came to regularly, so feed or whatever, so someone didn't actually have to go in and read the chip, so that, you know, it's read from some monitor, so you totally don't have to have a person to get the temperatures.
Dr. Corley.
There's a published paper by Dr. Shavat Pascal, I think, which they use slightly larger chips in fold and put the reader around the feed. They had little feed buckets with a reader around, and they were able to get temperatures that way. And, you know, technology moves on. I'm sure, hopefully we'll be able to get temperatures from these chips with new technology at some point in the future.
There's another question that somebody typed in that said, does the information recorded need to be entered at the time of scanning, i.e. breeding, in comments, treatments, etc., or can it be entered after the fact, manually entering it into the horse's name on the app?
It can be entered after the fact. The only thing about that is the date that you enter that note will be at the time you enter that note. So if you're like making a date sensitive entry, it will show up at the time that you enter the data.
Right.
And that would be the only fallback on that. But I've gone back and corrected many notes and added many notes at any time. So no, that's easily done. You just have to be careful with the when you're looking at the notes that the note will actually appear at the date that you entered that note.
Thank you for joining the University of Kentucky Department of Veterinary Sciences for this seminar brought to you by Doctors Alan Dorton and Kevin Corley. Please keep an eye on our website at the Gluck Equine Research Center for further seminars that may be of interest to you.